Colleagues, in the 2015 session, this body passed out the K-12 budget on March 31st. Even though the budget was inadequate, we were told the school district needed the budgetary guidance as they were in the process of creating their own budgets for the next school year. Fast forward to this past week, and you'll remember that the Portland School Board last week announced that they will be making a bunch of cuts next year. They're going to be cutting dozens of positions based on the budgetary guidance that they've received thus far from the governor and the co-chairs, because that's all they have. And this scenario is now playing out across the state as our 196 school districts go through their budget process that must be completed by the end of June. And yet, I guess what frustrates me this session is the lack of urgency to address our budget priorities. We recall, we all have known about this well before we began our work in February. We knew we were going to have to do some heavy work. And I've had a lot of input from various sources over this session, as I'm sure you all have, who have told me that if we just made other sectors pay their, quote, fair share, that all our education funding woes would be fixed. Those of you that have visited my office this session may have noticed this statement that's written on my whiteboard in my office, and it says this: public education can never be fully funded as long as the annual costs to fully fund exceed the growth of state revenue. Let me say that again. Public education can never be fully funded as long as the annual costs to fully fund exceed the growth of state revenues. We frequently hear that if our schools were just funded at the QEM or the quality education model, that all of our funding issues would be fixed. But what this argument doesn't realize is that as long as the annual cost for education continue to outpace revenues, even QEM will not be adequate. The $8 billion figure for K-12 in the governor's budget is actually about a 7% increase over the K-12 budget in the previous biennium. So that seems reasonable, right? But it's not, because the cost of personnel continue to escalate at a rate that exceeds revenues. So colleagues, I think it's about time for us to get serious about doing the right thing and doing the hard work that we knew we were going to have to do, and we showed up here in February. It's time to get serious about doing the hard work of helping to bend the cost curve of public education and for all of our state agencies. Rep. Parrish put a very good idea on the table last week. I have other ideas, and I know there are members here that have some as well. So let's get serious about putting together the type of bipartisan coalition that we're going to have to do make the bold reforms that we need to do so that we aren't in this situation every 2 years. My door is open, and I know there are other doors open as well. And our school districts are anxiously waiting for us to get to work. Thank you, Madam Speaker.